Hey everyone, welcome back to Berlin Noir. Today we are finally crossing the Spree River and working our way towards Alexanderplatz. So really up until this episode, the entirety of the city has been built on the one side of the Spree River that works its way through Berlin. I've been expanding on the opposite side of a canal that runs further south in the city, but for the most part I've been remaining pretty central to around, I guess, Brandenburg Gate and the Tiergarten. But now this is the first episode, like I said, in which we are expanding over the Spree River, and that opens up a lot of more possibilities and a lot more cool builds in the future, such as, Alexanderplatz, which will be the next episode. But for today, we are going to be working on this area, which is basically in between the Spree River and Alexanderplatz and the Alexanderplatz Bahnhof, the train station there. And so this area, today looks absolutely really like nothing like it did back then. There is when you think of Berlin, at least the Berlin skyline, there's not much of one, but definitely the TV tower is what's pretty iconic when you think of a Berlin skyline, because for all the other buildings, more or less, aren't not much of a skyline. They're pretty small. There's a few small skyscrapers and apartments nowadays, but really the big thing that stands out is the television tower, which obviously was not built around back in 1929. But so this area is quite different now than it was back then. But the three things that I focus on in this episode being what I'm building currently, which is St. Nicholas's Church, which is now a museum, and then later on in the episode, I work on the town hall, the Rotes Rathaus, which I guess is just red town hall in German, and also St. Mary's Church. So those are the three things I focus on in this episode, and those three locations still do exist today. So starting out for the episode, this church here is supposed to be the St. Nicholas Church. It's a peculiar area, just this tiny little block here. I wasn't able to fully replicate it because I didn't really give myself enough space here, because the church itself is kind of surrounded by these small little blocks of just buildings. Or back then, even today, it still is kind of. But back then, it kind of looks similar to this, where you just had the church here, a little angle around that shallow bend of a road, and just looked very nice. I tried to detail it up nice with some trees and detail the little roads that weave in between it. So the asset I'm actually using here is from a church in Austria, but what I was really looking for was just a church that was colored with that reddish, orangish roof, as well as two steeples in that green, teal, color, whatever you want to say. Because that is very similar to the real church here in real life. But so moving on from that, I have a short little image here that I wanted to show you guys. From back then, you have in your top left corner, you see some steeples, as well as the town hall, museum island there in the center. And but so just out of that, I guess if you want, you can go back and pause it there for a sec, because I'll continue to talk about it for a tad. But it's a really cool, interesting photo that I stumbled across when I was looking for some images or videos of this area back then. But you can really see that stands out being the church that we just built, the town hall here that I'm currently detailing, and then also the other St. Mary's Church that I build later in the episode. And it's a nice photo, and it's also surprisingly clear. I'm not sure if it was maybe taken from like an observation balloon, trying to think, because the photo I believe was from 1930, I think. I'm not sure, but around the same time as 1929, which the series is set. But yeah, it's a very nice photo, and it gives you a nice glance and look over this area and what we've kind of built so far. But yeah, so here is the town hall that we're building. I scaled it down a tad because the asset itself was really big. And, to be fair, the real life building is pretty large. It takes up the entirety of a city block, at least in this area. I mean, the blocks are pretty small here, but nonetheless, it's a pretty large asset, so I did scale it down again, or a bit, using PO. But yeah, it still looks very large and grand, as it should. But I just wanted to do some minor detailing in its backyard, or I guess plazas, whatever, with just some decals and some flowers with a little statue, which I believe was of Beethoven, if I'm not mistaken, or I don't know, maybe someone else, but it was some musical classical artist, which, I mean, it doesn't really matter. It just looks like a statue of some important person, which is what I'm going for since it's in the courtyard of the town hall. But interestingly enough, I guess not interestingly enough, but more just so, fun facts on the actual town hall itself. It was built in the 1860s. Actually, took a while to build, from 61 to 69, and it served as the seat for the city's government and mayor up until World War II, which was destroyed. And then it served for East Berlin, the seat of the government for East Berlin. And then once the city was united, in 91, it once again became the house for the mayor and the city, and is so to this day as well. But so I guess moving on from that, we now get to the third little small build in this episode, and that being the St. Mary's Cathedral here. And I guess just a half second ago you saw me expand the intersection, or I guess expand, maybe not a good word, but the mod is Node Controller, which is new-ish. I actually just stumbled across it earlier last week. I think it's still a few months old, so it's new for sure, but not like super new. Not sure why I didn't know about it beforehand. But I love the mod, and I absolutely hate it. So I love it because, building a city at this time, and often really just European cities in general, the intersections aren't really, like American intersections are pretty, standard. They're, as the base game, they're, the curves around the intersection are more pointed. They're not very rounded, I suppose, as I kind of slightly adjusted it for that intersection there. But yeah, so like especially when you have tram tracks going down the roads, and when they turn and such, it's very unrealistic to have really sharp junctions at these intersections for the trams, because trams can't make sharp 90-degree turns. They have to make a more shallow turn, of course. They're on tracks, so obviously, it's not super realistic how the game and the trams work in the game. But yeah, so that mod allows you to kind of expand or grow the intersections, I suppose. But what I said, I love it, but the reason why, at least currently, I can't stand it is because I know I'm not the only one with this issue, but I get an error with it about 3/4 of the time, which really sucks because, like I said, it's a very nice mod. It allows you to make the intersections look more nice. I use it again later in the episode to make a nice, very gradual turn and expand an intersection, because it looks really nice, and it's definitely more realistic to the time when you have these intersections with tram roads going down there, and they have much more space as they would have back then. But yeah, I have a ton of issues. So I mean, when I was recording this, I would go in, and once I actually got to work, once I built whatever I built and exited, and once I returned back to the save game and loaded it up, I would get the error, and all the adjustments to the intersections that I made with the mod would be gone, and until I managed to somehow get the mod working again after half a dozen reloads and messing around with the Harmony mod, which is a dependency for the mod, and also the actual node controller mod itself. So yeah, I haven't really found a solution. I talked with the creators on their Discord chat, and not much help there. They more or less just said to uninstall, reinstall the Harmony mod, which I told them I did, and then they just said uninstall the mod. And it's like, I did, and then I just kind of gave up. So I guess any of you guys who, I'm sure there's a few of you who have messed around with the mod and have ran into a similar problem. So if you found a solution, please let me know, because I definitely want to use the mod. I still have it subscribed, even though I kind of given up at this point, just because it's a pain to basically take half an hour to unsubscribe to mods, resubscribe, load up the game, close it, reload it, close it, reload it, until finally it works. So it's a big hassle, and it's not something I'm going to do on a regular basis, because it's, going to make me hate the game, which this game already has, its own fun issues frequently, so I don't need anything else added to the game. But yeah, so any of you who have any possible solutions, let me know in the comments, because yeah, like I said, awesome mod, but until they fix it, not really going to be using it. But so anyways, moving on from that, we built that small little park / plaza thing there a second ago next to the church. It looked like there was something like that when I was looking at the aerial view of the area. The actual picture itself of the aerial view was kind of overexposed, the photo, so it's kind of hard to tell exactly what I'm looking at. It looked like it was some sort of little park there with just covered in trees, so that's kind of what I did. As nothing really special, looks kind of plain, but it's nice to add some greenery, of course, in a city, because it definitely makes it a little more realistic, add some life to it. But so as you can tell, it's a pretty short episode, only about 18 and a half minutes, so we still have some time to go. But for the most of the episode, just kind of doing these small little blocks here, filling in. As you can see, I did, or I guess in a couple shots when I'm building, like when I was building St. Mary's Church, you could see that I was already have placed the Alexanderplatz Bahnhof, and that was actually a while ago. I don't detail it or anything, because the actual asset itself is it's a modern asset. It's got escalators and glass everywhere. So I don't do anything with it this episode. I'm saving that for the next episode, in which we actually build Alexanderplatz, on the opposite side of the train station there. And then I'm going to, customize the train station myself. I'll put stairs in place of the escalators, and put up some brick walls instead of the glass that surrounds the station, just to make it look a little older. Because the actual station itself, the shape and the roof and all, hasn't really changed since back then. It's just, it obviously has since been modernized, and I'm sure after World War II it was partly destroyed, so it had to be rebuilt to some extent. But yeah, so that'll come in the next episode. But so here I'm just revisiting the very first area that we built with the St. Nicholas Church. I had these little bollards, which are from the old French street props and assets, where I forget the creator's name, but I mispronounced it once before, and I'm not going to try it again. But it's the creator has a pack with a bunch of old French street props, like those little bollards, but also I placed down a few earlier, but little street market vendors, little things like that, which I've been placing down more and more, just to make it look a little more realistic, because I know there was a lot of, it was pretty frequent really wherever you went, just to have little vendors on the street, more or less their small business that they had back then, where they sold little trinkets or small things, maybe produce of some kind. But so yeah, I'll be adding more of those throughout the city, just detail the sidewalk and curb area, because I want to do more besides just either leave the streets plain or add trees, because there's so much more to it back then. But yeah, so I guess here you can see the actual train station itself there. It's quite modern, but yeah, I'll take care of that, like I said, in the next episode. But yeah, here's pretty much the last little block that I do. Yeah, there wasn't really much to do in this episode besides the 3 main areas that I already built. I pretty much just included this stuff just because I wanted to have a episode that was more than 10 minutes long. But also there needs to be some sort of just routine like this, or I guess, though I must say, here is where I mentioned that I also use the node controller mod to make that very nice curve there, and it looks so nice. And yeah, it's a real bummer that I just can't get the thing working. And I'm sure eventually the creators will work it out, but for now, yeah, I can't really deal with it. It's just not worth it, as I already explained all the trouble I've had with it. But still, making those nice curves, detailing it with the trees going around, placing a little kiosk with the advertisement columns there, and yeah, just trying to add some more life to the city streets, make it look a little more unique in different areas. And here as well, just adding some trees to the road. Yeah, I'm trying to make this area look a little nicer. But anyways, we're pretty much at the end of the episode. Just got some cinematics following. But I hope you guys all enjoyed this episode today. Shorter, but I will see you all next time.